For 2 years, they've been hemorrhaging money. They sell cars anywhere from $80,000, $220,000, and lose over $500,000 per car sold. They would be better off if they gave away money. It would be less financially unstable. If they just decided to give away Camrys, they'd only lose $35,000 per sale, and they would be much more financially stable. We're going to get right into the sales in this episode. I use data from 7 different manufacturers, everything from a Ford Lightning pickup all the way to Teslas. There's 2 manufacturers that are doing extremely well and outperforming the rest of the market. And then the rest of them are losing anywhere from 20% value to over 40% value in the last 12 months alone. There's one manufacturer that's doing so poorly, I was worried about the way that it presents in this video. I had a friend that I was talking with about this, and he asked me what he would do if he was looking in the EV market. And I told him the one thing that I could promise him that he would do is lose money, and probably lose a lot of money. The EV market is significantly underperforming the rest of the car market. I'm not sure if it's a leading indicator of things to come, probably, or if it's just tanking unto itself. While prices have dropped a lot in the last 12 months, none to the degree of the EV market, and that's why we're going to look at them today. I gathered all the data off Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer and realized that we should really focus on the last 12 months. One, because the larger time frame really started to paint a really bleak picture, and 2, since we focus just on the last 12 months of data, it's going to show you how quick things are changing right now. All right, now we're going to get into the car sales. We're going to do this alphabetically. So first up on our list is the Audi RS E-Tron. And excuse me while I look at the information here. So on Bring a Trailer, there's only been 2 listed, 1 sold. They have an MSRP around $165,000. It's a real sharp looking car. Unfortunately, they're not selling well at all. So this one sold for $109,000. So that's just a massive loss on this car. There's not many of these cars being sold on the open market. I'm guessing that people are either trading them in or selling them privately. The prices are descending so fast, it's like a rock falling off a cliff. I'd probably stay away from the Audi e-tron in the short term just to see where the rock stops, if you will, and see if the price stabilizes a little bit. Maybe it'll stabilize around 100 grand or something like that. But right now, it's just too fast of a decline, and you don't want to get in front of that bus.
Jump in front of that bus.
All right, next up is the Ford F-150 Lightning. There's actually been a ton of them for sale. I'm going to look at the numbers here. So on Bring a Trailer, there was 34 of them listed and 13 did not sell. That's 38% did not sell, which is like double what the normal is on Bring a Trailer. And then on Cars and Bids, there's been 53 listed and 10 did not sell. That's 19%. So that's about average, but they're selling much better on Cars and Bids than they are on Bring a Trailer. When we look at the chart on this, there's been a big decline over the last 12 months, and the sellers can't get MSRP for lower option Lariat trucks, even when they have no miles on them. The Lariats are selling in their 60s, with MSRP being in the 70s and 80s. For the Platinums, they're getting essentially MSRP or better in some cases, and this continues the trend that we see in the broader car market where very highly optioned vehicles are getting top dollar. We see that with C8 Corvettes, and we see that with some other things, and so that's true in the F-150 Lightnings as well. All right, next up we have another truck. We have the GMC Hummer EV Edition 1. These have been doing very well. From a price perspective, the MSRP on these is around $110,000. And from a sales perspective, they are the landslide winner in the EV market for maintaining value. When we look a little bit deeper at the sales figures, they're number 2 from a sell versus did not meet reserve on the used online auction sites, but they are still doing very well. So looking at the numbers on Bring a Trailer, there's 27 of them listed, only 3 did not sell. That's 11% no sale, which is essentially half of what the norm is on Bring a Trailer. The norm is around 20% no sale. And then on Cars and Bids, there was 23 listed with 4 not selling. That's 17%. Still a little bit better than what the norm is there as well, which is around 20%. All of this is despite the fact that there's been some significant recalls on these, primarily a replacement battery. There was about 700 of them where the whole battery had to be replaced. I watched a video from a YouTuber, the Stradman, where he needed to go in to get his battery replaced on his Hummer, and he showed a picture of the battery as well as the mechanism, and I'll show you a picture of how big this battery is. And so this thing's supposedly like 5,000 pounds, and they have a special equipment just to lower the old one out of the truck and raise the new one back into it. But then they just send you on your way, so it's no big deal. Even with that recall, these trucks are selling very well on the used online market. And they had a little bit of hysteria at the beginning, like so many of these, and the prices were just exorbitant. But they've come back down and they've stabilized kind of around that $150,000 mark, which is well above MSRP, and they're just outperforming everything else in the EV market. I would watch out if you were going to purchase one of these, because more than likely these prices are going to drop down towards MSRP or thereabouts. I can't imagine them maintaining above MSRP for very much longer, so keep that in mind. Now we're going to move on to our next car, which is a doozy.
It's a doozy!
All right, the next car is a hold on to your shorts kind of moment. This is the one that I was a little hesitant to discuss just because of how bad the sales figures look and how bad the financial results have been on this company. All right, I present to you the Lucid Air, specifically the Dream and the Grand Touring. We're going to focus on those two models because those are what's really selling in the online auction sites. First, the good on this car. So it's got a ton of really good reviews. Doug DeMuro did a very favorable review of it. And all the range addicts got what they wanted with this car. With the Dream, you get over 500 miles range, and they have a ton of power in them. The Dream is around 1,100 horsepower, and the Grand Touring is around 800 horsepower. While incredibly powerful, it's also incredibly heavy. This car weighs in around 6,000 pounds. The Grand Touring goes for MSRP that's around $140,000, and then the Dream has an MSRP that starts at $170,000, and there's even an addition above that, which is well above $200,000. All right, let's get into the sales. So on the Lucid Air, unlike pretty much every other brand, when these first came out, they didn't have a surge above MSRP. When they first started selling online, they were selling around MSRP, which is $180,000 for the Dream. Those values quickly declined to 110, 120 range, which was quite surprising over the last 12 months. And so that's been a tremendous decline on the Dream. The Grand Touring with the MSRP around $140,000 first started selling around there and quickly dropped, and it's struggling to maintain a $100,000 sale price. That's a 35% decline on Dreams and a 30% decline on the Grand Touring. If we look at the data on the sites, on Bring a Trailer, there's 14 of them listed. 8 of them did not sell, and that's a 57% no sale. On Cars and Bids, only 1 sold out of 3. That's not a whole lot of car sales. So, but this is just showing just horrible numbers. I think that they're going to have to lower the reserve prices down to like $100,000 so that they can get the sales to pick back up. Right now, they're just not selling at all. This has to be the fastest depreciating car in modern history. I don't talk too much about company financials, but I wanted to dig beneath the surface on Lucid just to see if there was anything bubbling there, and boy was there. So fourth quarter last year was worse than they anticipated, and then Q1 this year was worse than anticipated as well. For Q1, they had declining sales, laid off about 20% of the workforce, lost $779 million, and they delivered 1,406 cars. That comes out to be about $550,000 loss per car delivered. For 2 years, they've been hemorrhaging money. They sell cars anywhere from $80,000 to $220,000 and lose over $500,000 per car sold. They would be better off if they gave away money. It would be less financially unstable. If they just decided to give away Camrys, they'd only lose $35,000 per sale, and they would be much more financially stable. Lucid said that they're going to deliver an SUV later this year that's named Gravity. I'm hoping that that'll help them turn things around a little bit from a financial as well as a delivery perspective and get things back on track. Part of me is wondering if they priced themselves out. So they delivered what everybody said that they wanted, and their prices are extremely high. They have the long range and a ton of horsepower, but I'm just wondering if they priced themselves out of their own market. All right, that's enough about Lucid. Let's move on to our next manufacturer, which is Porsche. So how has Porsche been doing with their Taycan? Let's take a look at the sales numbers on Bring a Trailer. So on Bring a Trailer, there was 11 cars listed. 4 of them did not sell, so 30% no sale. And then on Cars and Bids, it was 12 cars listed. 6 of them did not sell, so 50% no sale on Cars and Bids. So both of those are really bad numbers. What's worse than those numbers is the sales figures. So the sales have dropped dramatically on the Porsche models. All right, with Porsche, there's so many different variations of each of the models. So I wanted to focus in on some of the individual sales just to give you examples. These are in line with the rest of the market as a whole, but we'll use these as the examples. So first off is a 2022 Cross Turismo with delivery miles, 396 miles on this thing. So the MSRP on this car is about $111,000 and it sold for $93,000. So tremendous decline. Not terrible, but not great either. Next up is a 22 Taycan GTS that's on Cars and Bids. So it had $147,000 MSRP on this car, and it did not sell at $121,000. So another example of a car that the reserve price is probably set a little bit too high. They're just not able to get to it. Nobody's willing to pay that. But last and least is a 2021 Taycan Turbo S. MSRP on these cars is $220,000. This was only bid to $135,000 and it had a no sale. So that's almost a 40% loss in 2 years on this Taycan. This is the single worst depreciation car that we're going to look at today, and just a massive loss. The Porsches are either not selling or selling for massive losses right now. So now we're going to turn things around. And you remember earlier when I said there was 2 companies that were doing very well. The first was the GMC Hummer EV Edition 1, and now we're going to look at Rivian. The Rivian market is holding up very well from a sales perspective. They're selling extremely well, not as strong as the Hummer EVs, but still strong nonetheless. So let's dig into it. We're going to start off with the R1T, which is the truck. They also have an R1S that we're going to go over a little bit later. So kicking off things with the R1T, I'm going to look at the data here. So it has an MSRP that's around $77,000, and most are selling in the high 70s, even 80s. And then on Bring a Trailer, there's been 41 of them listed, and 6 did not sell for a 15% no sale. So that's better than the average, which is around 20% again. So these are doing very well. On Cars and Bids, there's been 83 of them listed, and only 8 did not sell. So that's like a 10% did not sell. That is just absolutely killing it. Normally it's around 20%, so this thing is 10%. They're selling almost every single one of these. It's amazing numbers from a sales perspective and quite impressive. Like a few other models that we talked about, these did experience a little bubble at the initial onset of the sales for these, and people were paying way over MSRP, but it kind of stabilized down. So now they're selling around MSRP, maybe a little bit more for these trucks. All right, now we're going to get into the Rivian R1S SUV and take a look at the sales numbers on this. So there's been 13 of them listed on Bring a Trailer, and only 3 did not sell. So that's 23%, so pretty much average. And then on Cars and Bids, there's been 67 of them listed with 2 not selling. That's only 3% not selling. That's just an insane sale percentage and quite impressive. From what I'm seeing for the SUVs, since they haven't been out as long as the trucks, is they've dropped about $10,000 or $15,000, which is a pretty small percentage relative to the rest of the EV market as whole, and they're holding at that value. So it seems like these are doing quite well. They're selling well, and they're maintaining price well. For the Tesla market, we're only going to look at the data from Cars and Bids. There's not very many Teslas that sell on Bring a Trailer, so we're just focusing on Cars and Bids. And since there's so many models and submodels in Tesla, I kind of picked and chose the ones that were most popular or most interesting to everyone that's out there. So we're going to start off with the Model S and with the Plaid. And so on Cars and Bids, there was 8 of them listed and 4 of them did not sell. So half of them are not selling. When these kicked off, they were selling for around 140,000 MSRP, and so over the years they've declined. In the last 12 months alone, they've lost about $25,000 in value, and now they're transacting around 80s, maybe as much as 90. And so that seems to be the range that these Model S Plaids are in right now. All right, next up is the Tesla Model Y. So there's been 29 of these listed, with 9 of them not selling. That's 31%, which is more than the average, but not horrendous. These are doing pretty well from a pricing perspective, though. They were selling initially around the 50s, and they've dropped down to the high 30s, around 40. And so from a sales perspective, they're actually doing pretty well, especially in comparison to the rest of the Tesla market. All right, next up is the Tesla Model X. So on Cars and Bids, there's been 50 of them listed, with 12 of them not selling. That's 24%. It's around average. I made these into 2 different groups, if you will, one previous to 2020 and then one 2020 and newer, just to make it a little bit simpler to understand of what's happening with the pricing. The older ones, the prices are just absolutely cratering. And so they're going from 60s and 70s a year ago to going around 40,000 now. That's almost a 40% decline, but that's not the worst. If we look at the Model X Plaids, they have declined over 40%. So they went from 140s down to about 80. And so it's very similar to the Model S Plaids from a decline of sales price. All right, last of the Teslas that we're going to go over is the Model 3s. So on Cars and Bids, there's been 104 of these listed, with 13 of them not selling. That's about 12.5% of no sales. So in the past 12 months, they've fallen about 25% in pricing. So they went from the 60s to selling in the 30s and 40s right now. Here's 2 of the latest sales. The first one, going for $38,500, was a higher mileage version with 29,000 miles on it, and it was the long range model. The second was also a long range model, and it went for $40,000. This car only had 5,500 miles on the clock. The good news on the Model 3 is that they come up quite often, and they typically sell, albeit at a little bit lower price. All right, that's a wrap on all the pricing. What surprised you? For me, the surprise was Lucid just completely tanking, as well as Porsche. And then also from a positive perspective, I was very surprised at how strong Rivian had been and how well they were selling on Cars and Bids. All right, now we come to my favorite part, the opinions or recommendations. And so what would I recommend in this segment? I'm real hesitant to recommend anything in this segment just because I feel like the prices are fluctuating so dramatically right now that it's a little bit dangerous to hop into it. I'd probably wait out this market till it stabilizes a little bit. Philosophically, cars lose money and they depreciate over time, and so we should expect that. So one thing that is not happening right now in this market is the Hummers are maintaining, the Rivians are maintaining, and so they haven't dropped as much as the rest of the market. So I'd be real hesitant to get into those. The Tesla Model 3 seems as though it's depreciated quite a bit, and maybe it's stabilizing where it is right now. All of these are guesses, but those are my initial thoughts on what's happening with the market and where I would probably get into a car or not. There seems to be a lot of risk in this segment right now, and it's disproportionate to the risk that I see in many other car markets right now. So I think that it's an area to stay clear of for the time being and wait it out until everything stabilizes. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this content, please give me the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Every subscriber means a ton to me right now, and I thank you in advance. Also, when you're a subscriber, you'll get notifications of community polls that help guide us towards what content we create next. So keep an eye out for those notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.